The best healthcare is there in ways big and small. There when we most and least expect it. We may not see it, but we feel it. It lets us know we're not in this alone. Everyone deserves a healthcare partner who never quits. One who's there for what matters. United Healthcare. There for what matters.
Want your boss to put some real action behind the rhetoric when they talk about making your workplace more inclusive? Find out how to hold their feet to the fire and demand diversity on the Diversity Dude podcast.
Hello there, and welcome to the Diversity Dude podcast. I'm your host, Lambert Fisher, marriage and family therapist and award-winning author and national speaker on the topic of multicultural awareness and diversity. And for those of you who are interested in even more positive and encouraging tips and strategies beyond what I share in podcasts like this, then feel free to check out my award-winning book, Diversity in Clinical Practice, nationally recognized for the unique way in which it addresses the often difficult topic of multicultural awareness and diversity. Designed for more than just therapists, if you are a helping professional in any way, Diversity in Clinical Practice can help you meet the greatest variety of cultural needs possible for those whom you serve, and it's available in paper and audiobook versions for your convenience. And whether it be through my one-on-one relationship building efforts as a therapist or my informing and empowering efforts as an author and speaker, know that my personal mission is to improve the world one strengthened relationship at a time. So, today I want to share with you a few encouraging words about how DEI is often about life and death. If you haven't already heard, Dr. Antoinette Candia Bailey, former Vice President of Student Affairs at Lincoln University in Missouri, lost her life by suicide, with reports detailing her having experienced bullying and harassment from administrators and university leadership, especially that of University President John Mosley. Now, since the investigation into all of the circumstances surrounding this tragedy is still underway, I'll do my best not to speculate into exact motivations, contributing factors, or what the consequences should be for those who contributed to this significant loss of life. However, I do think it would be beneficial to use this brief time with you to share a few thoughts that may help you in your daily lives, whether it be in conversations about this incident or in any other way that your personal or professional life may be similar to this event. The first consideration is this. Harassment is not limited to race or ethnicity. Mental health is often a target as well. For many people, learning about the loss of Dr. Candia Bailey, the emotions are compounded on top of the ongoing efforts to process the forced resignation of former Harvard President Dr. Claudine Gay, both of whom are Black, female, university leaders with doctoral degrees. Many people who relate on one or more of these many factors feel devastated and concerned as a result. While there's gratefulness that Dr. Gay did not lose her life, there is a similarity in feeling of injustice that permeates the experiences of both professionals. Both experienced what looked like a significant professional achievement after years of hard work and dedication, with potential reasonable expectations not only of the opportunity to positively impact others in their respective roles, but also to receive support from the leaders around them, both personally as respected colleagues, as well as professionally, as many others in similar roles have received in the past. Unfortunately, in varying ways, they both learned that universal support was not guaranteed. And for Dr. Candia Bailey, it is believed that her mental health struggles with depression and anxiety were used against her to bully and harass her, contributing to an emotionally unsafe work environment, to say the least, and negatively impacting her overall sense of self on top of that. This unfortunate loss highlights the reality that just as people can be culturally looked down on due to their race or ethnicity, their gender, their faith, or more, they can also be harassed or discriminated against due to their mental health struggles as well. As a therapist myself, I can attest to the fact that mental health struggles are often difficult enough to deal with internally, with no one else around, and we can be our own worst critic. Evaluating our personal worth, our relational worth, our professional worth can be an ongoing challenge. Not everyone has experienced the support and affirmation they need to live their best lives. Even if it's not a particular person's responsibility, personally or professionally, to make someone else feel whole, sufficient, or worthy, it must be acknowledged that we all have the ability to negatively contribute to someone else's well-being, whether we intend to or not. I won't claim to know everything Dr. Candia Bailey was struggling with internally, but many who have taken their lives in the past have a history of previously experiencing feeling so overwhelmed, so unsupported, so alone, that they believe that after all of their efforts to change that reality were deemed unsuccessful. The only relief from that overwhelm that they could see that was left for them was to no longer be alive at all. Remember that people can feel overwhelmed by an abundance of direct and indirect harassment and bullying based on a variety of obvious and not so obvious factors. Let's do our best to stay on the lookout for such and offer assistance and support whenever possible in whatever way that you can. A second consideration is that bullying is not limited to youth. One of the things that I've witnessed in my role as a therapist as people learn of experiences like the loss of Dr. Candy Bailey is shock and surprise that someone, an adult who achieves so much, could let herself be influenced by bullying in the first place. While this may seem inconsiderate to many on the surface, I find that underneath the surface is not a genuine lack of consideration, but rather a misguided belief that bullying is something that only happens to kids and teenagers. Maybe they even expand their perspective due to the rise of cyberbullying these days to realize that it's beyond school days, but also internet and social media. But the belief holds that as an adult, that shouldn't or doesn't happen anymore. Unfortunately, this is simply not the case. While the average adult may not use the term bullying to describe their encounters at work or in the community, many professionals feel overwhelmed, overlooked, taken for granted, or ignored, to say the least, and disrespected and blatantly mistreated by those in power, whether authoritative power or social influence power, in their various environments. In isolated events, the lack of support and affirmation of one's worth on a regular basis can be inconvenient but manageable. But when these messages of lack of self worth are reinforced on a regular, consistent basis, more than one's value are encouraged, then age no longer matters. Everyone, no matter how young or old, benefits from confirmation outside of their own mind that they have value, that their existence on this earth matters. Not only that, but no matter what a person's professional role or income or achievements, we never know what negative or discouraging experiences they've had on their way to becoming that successful adult that you see and are underneath the surface that they're still trying to overcome. Some messages are like seeds planted by people very close and important to them, much more important than the current coworker or boss around them, that has had a lingering, lasting impact. And we're simply watering those by our encounters today, but often with negative and devastating results. Bullying and harassment can be direct and indirect, loud or quiet, obvious and public as well as private and devastating. Don't fall into the trap of assuming that adults aren't impacted by bullying or harassment. Don't assume that if it's not loud or overt racism, then it's not bad and people should just get over it. Instead, keep an eye out for bullying or harassment around you, as well as the unexpected impact it can have on those experiencing it, and offer support that may be more needed than you think. And finally, a third consideration is that we must all learn to value and care for our mental health, as well as those around us. Just as we can choose to ignore our physical health and simply hope for the best, we also know that our lives will be better if we make intentional efforts to value and care for our physical health. Sometimes we can even go so far as to encourage others to do the same, or even modify or accommodate our efforts in consideration of someone else's efforts to manage their own physical health. Not because we're responsible for others' physical health, but because we care about their physical health and the impact their health can have on their overall quality of life. You see the similarity? Just as we can choose to ignore our mental health and simply hope for the best, our lives will be better if we make intentional efforts to value and care for our mental health. Sometimes we can even go so far as to encourage others to do the same, or modify or accommodate our efforts in consideration of someone else's efforts to manage their own mental health, not because we're responsible for others' mental health, but because we care about the mental health of others and the impact their mental health can have on their overall quality of life. Mental health struggles aren't limited to one gender, one race or ethnicity, one age group. It's not limited to those who are considered weak, as if willpower makes one immune. There are many seen and unseen factors that contribute to one's mental well being. Sure, sometimes something you say or do can have more of a negative impact than you intend. Sometimes this is not due to you not knowing your own strength or there being so weak, but because of the abundance of negative factors that have occurred long before you came along, making your behavior hurt even more than it would seem. To put it more simply, picture this. You ever tried to open a jar of something but were unsuccessful? And then someone else comes along and tries once and says, I don't see what was so hard about that. The natural reaction for so many is to respond with, well, that's because I loosened it up for you. Well, although many may use this as an excuse, as a therapist, I know for many, what seems like a no big deal behavior or expression often has the effect of being the last straw on the top of a historical pile of devastating straws that have built up and have a difficult potential for the other person long before you came along. Unfortunately, saying, well, how was I supposed to know, doesn't often undo the devastating consequences. And while we can't know every impact we'll have on others, we can make intentional efforts to reduce the negative gestures and expressions we extend, and instead intentionally seek to offer more value and support to those around us. My hope for you is that whether you feel overwhelmed or you know someone around you who may be feeling overwhelmed due to direct or indirect harassment or bullying due to any obvious or not so obvious contributing factor, that we can do whatever is within our power to help those around you feel seen, feel heard, feel valued, no matter your cultural similarities or differences. You never know. Just by letting someone know that they matter to you, you may be contributing to someone else's overall sense of self-worth and encouraging them to live their best life possible. And maybe they can then be the next person to encourage someone else later because of the growth that they've made. And maybe you'll find yourself in a position to help reduce the likelihood that others around you are being bullied or harassed, creating a safe, personal, and professional environment for those around you everywhere moving forward. And with that, I'll say thanks again for listening to today's Diversity Dude podcast. If you have any pressing diversity related questions that you'd like me to address on an upcoming podcast, or if your organization is in need of a shame free or empowering guest speaker or training on this often sensitive topic, then feel free to reach out to me directly at www.diversitymadesimple.com. And if you know of anyone else who can benefit from a positive and encouraging perspective on this often difficult topic of diversity, then feel free to send them a link to this podcast so they can be encouraged as well, or share with them my award-winning book, Diversity in Clinical Practice, available at Amazon.com. And as usual, I look forward to addressing as many topics as possible in future podcasts to help you improve as many relationships as possible at work, at home, and in your community. And as always, remember this: you don't need to know everything about everyone in order to have a positive impact on someone. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a great day.
Tune in each week and find out how to demand and implement diversity at your job. To hear more, check out previous Diversity Dude shows on ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
It's not just another day in your life. Things are changing for the better. At Comcast, we see those changes, and we're thinking about how we use technology today to live, work, learn, and play. And we're building for the future now, so we're better prepared for the wants and needs of tomorrow. That's why Comcast is rolling out multi-gig internet speeds to more than 50 million homes and businesses before the end of 2025, making our already industry-leading network even faster, smarter, greener, and more reliable. Over the decades, Comcast has been your partner, working hard to serve your community, and will continue to be your partner. We're expanding our gigabits so you can enjoy the tiny bits that matter most.
Did you or someone you love just test positive for COVID-19? The good news is that most healthy people who test positive for COVID-19 right now will experience a mild illness and can recover at home. Folks with risk factors for severe illness with COVID-19 may benefit from antiviral medications. These medications are taken by mouth at home and can be picked up at a pharmacy. They can be particularly helpful for people who are older, immunocompromised, or who live with some chronic conditions. And here's good news. These treatments can help prevent severe illness, hospitalization, and death from COVID-19. So reach out to your trusted healthcare provider right away. If you test positive and are at higher risk, treatments need to be started soon in order to work best. Your healthcare provider can determine which COVID-19 medication option is best to prescribe. And remember, COVID-19 medications are no substitute for prevention. Vaccines are recommended for people starting at 6 months of age to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in our community.
Unleash the power of smile for your team. Delta Dental of Minnesota offers coverage to fit your unique small business, leading to a better benefit package and a happier team. Visit deltadentalmn.org/small business.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.